The Chargers made 4 moves yesterday, and now today they are still making roster moves. Joe Ortiz was serious earlier in this year when he said that he wants to churn the bottom of that roster. And the Chargers, they're probably just about to make yet another move in order to bolster that defensive line. They also had 3 guys coming in for workouts. They are being very active in this free agent market already, just not even before preseason week 2. And also, there's been some talk about Colin Kaepernick because of how our backup quarterback situation looks right now. So, let's just go ahead and start out with that because it's been in the news a little bit recently because Colin Kaepernick came out and said that he's still training and trying to get back into the NFL, and he believes that he can still compete at quarterback for some team. Now, I know that Colin Kaepernick is a controversial figure, but let's just completely forget about all of that. Forget about all the media nonsense that he would bring if he does get signed. Let's just look at this from strictly a football perspective because that's all we need right now, okay? He's a 36-year-old quarterback who has been out of the league for 8 years, and he has not had a good season since 2014. So, his quarterback rating never been above 73.7, and the last time that he played, his quarterback rating was in the 40s at 49. And he also has a fumbling problem that doesn't really get talked about too often, but he's had 21 fumbles in his career. Also, his completion percentage is below 60%. I think the only reason that people like the idea of Colin Kaepernick being on the Chargers is because of what he looked like in 2013 and 2014, but in reality, those were his only good years, and they weren't even that great. It was just the fact that the Niners were such a good team around him, and Jim Harbaugh was the head coach. They were very well coached with Greg Roman as well as the offensive coordinator, but naturally, people want to reunite Jim Harbaugh and Colin Kaepernick to try to just reignite that magic that they had for those 2 years again in 2013 and 2014. And that's 10 years. I was in middle school when Colin Kaepernick was an okay quarterback. But also on top of all of this, Colin Kaepernick wasn't really as good as people remember. He's going to be 37 in November, has certainly lost a step, maybe even 2 steps because we haven't seen him on an NFL field. Speaking of not even being on an NFL field since 2016, he hasn't read an NFL defense, and the defensive schemes that teams run nowadays, it's evolved a lot. It is not the same. We're not talking about some Brandon Staley defensive guru type of defense. We're talking about really complex schemes that teams are running that they didn't run 10 years ago. I just don't think this would work at all. And the Chargers know that. That's why they're not going to sign him. But that doesn't mean that Colin Kaepernick is not going to be a Charger. And what I mean by that is Jim Harbaugh, he called Colin Kaepernick to be a part of his coaching staff earlier this year. And we know now that Colin Kaepernick probably said no to Jim Harbaugh because he wants to still be a quarterback in the NFL. But maybe in 1 or 2 years, once he kind of gives that up, maybe he could become a coach. And I would really like to see Colin Kaepernick on the coaching staff for the Chargers, just not in the QB room as a quarterback, because I don't think that would work out. Now let's get into some of these moves that have been made. So first of all, Savion Jackson, welcome back to the team, bro. He was waived a couple of days ago. He was an undrafted free agent that we signed just after the draft, but now we signed him again, and to make room for him, they waived Chris Wilcox, who had a pretty rough game against the Seahawks. Hasn't been doing really great in practice, but almost everyone had a rough game against the Seahawks, to be honest, except Luis Perez. Oh, and Luis Perez, he actually had an interview yesterday, and if you needed another reason to root for him, just listen to this.
I grew up a Charger fan my whole life. So being able to hear and wear the Chargers uniform, it's a great feeling. Not only for myself, but for my family, and again, I'm just happy to be here, grateful, and ready to keep learning.
Born and bred in San Diego, lifelong Chargers fan. He is one of us. Now, we have 3 guys that the Chargers worked out yesterday. Might add to this roster, so keep an eye out for a possible move. But Frank Ginda, middle linebacker, played in the USFL, was a defensive player of the year, actually, in the USFL in 2023. He was signed by the Falcons this past year, was on their practice squad during the whole season. And it's interesting to me that the Chargers have added 2 interior, or they haven't signed him yet, but they're looking at him. They already signed Shaquill Quarterman, and now they're looking at another middle linebacker this week. They must really want competition there because I'm assuming they don't like the guys that they have right now very much. I mean, obviously that would be the reason that they're trying to add competition, but Tucker Fisk, another guy they worked out, big tight end, 6'4", 285 pounds. This dude, he can eat. Only 25 years old. On the Falcons last year too, he had 1 catch for 9 yards, had 72 blocking reps last year with an 87.5% blocking efficiency by PFF. So he might be someone to keep an eye on as well, especially with Hayden Hurst maybe being hurt from that Seahawks game. We don't know how hurt he was. Thanks, Easton Stick, for throwing that ball. But you know what? Let's move on because there's another guy. Last guy from that workout, Trevon Wesco. He was a 4th-round pick by the Jets in 2019. Played for the Titans last year with only 1 catch on 3 targets. But he is graded as a better run blocker and a better pass blocker than Tucker Fisk. Played way more with 374 blocking snaps. So he's got some experience as well. 2 tight ends and a middle linebacker. The Chargers worked out yesterday, and that's what they're looking at. So the last guy that I want to talk about, last guy that was brought in for a visit, Teair Tart from the Titans. So he was actually just on the Dolphins recently. He signed with the Dolphins in free agency this year, and then was already released by the Dolphins just this week for, we'll get into a little bit of maybe why. But here's the thing. Chargers, they wasted no time bringing him in, man. Joe Ortiz means business when he says he wants to be competitive, and Jim Harbaugh wants to add competition onto this roster. This would be an awesome move. I want them to make this move so badly. He's a great run stuffer. He's got the size at 6'2", 305 pounds. That's the size that you want on the interior of that defensive line. We're talking like nose tackle to 3 tech, and then you don't put him out any more wide after that, because this dude is just strictly for the interior and eating up those gaps, stopping the run. That is exactly what we need. Am I not describing exactly what the Chargers have been missing for like 10 years? Teair Tart, only 27 years old as well, and he has some really good tape from his time with the Titans. I'm sure I'm showing you guys it right now, but the only concern is the possible character issues that have been rumored around him. That's, the rumor is why he's not a Dolphin right now is because he's lazy and he doesn't like to practice. Now, he's 27 years old, 305 pounds, defensive lineman. Like, there are some defensive linemen that we've seen in the NFL in the past that have those same concerns of being lazy, not wanting to practice, things like that. And the fact that the Dolphins signed him this year in free agency, and then he hasn't even gotten to week 2 of the preseason, kind of makes me think, okay, this is probably true. Because if you just look at the tape, you'd be very impressed with him, and why would the Dolphins cut him? But I think if the Chargers, they bank on their culture, they bring him in, just like they've been banking on their culture with all these other guys that they signed in free agency, like Christian Fulton. He had character concerns too, but with Jim Harbaugh, he can get people to buy in and commit to working hard, hopefully. But if they can get Teair Tart to just even be like 75% of what he was with the Titans, then I think that this would be a huge addition for this defense. And he's not like a really productive pass rusher. He can move some guys in the pass rush, but this is a dude that you signed specifically because you want to stop the run. And we know Jim Harbaugh values the run game on defense, stopping the run, and on offense, establishing the run. I think this would be a Jim Harbaugh move. This would be a great signing, really at a great time for the Chargers as well, because he would have a couple weeks. I think it's 25 days right now until they play the Raiders in week 1. So we'd have 25 days to get up to speed with this scheme. I really like this move. I think it's going to happen. Let it happen. And that is everything that you need to know today. If you did not see my video yesterday, the Chargers were making some more moves yesterday as well.